Hello, this is the Scottish Football Show, and here's what's coming up. Dour, dreich, and downright unacceptable. Dens Park is in the doghouse. Hilly chaos, 18 minutes of madness in the race for Europe. And it's International Week. We're warming up for Germany, and it is so exciting. Welcome, one and all. Let's be honest, it's been a slow news week for Scottish football. So why not just look ahead to the international doubleheader and, pick our best Kate Middleton conspiracy theories because it's the same thing everyone else is talking about on the internet right now. And I am well in that TikTok black hole, along with most people right now. Joining me on the show, probably not in that same black hole because Finn absolutely refuses to join TikTok, but it is Melbourne City's creative director, Findlay Marks. Welcome.
Hello. I'm not too sure what to believe with Kate now. I'm just hoping that we can come up with some sort of rescue plan for her, because I think it's beyond doubt now that she's just not getting allowed out in public, is she?
I am fully invested. I want this movie to come out sooner rather than later because it's just ridiculous. The whole thing is just utterly mental. And like, obviously, you can tell that Andrew is not here this week because I'm standing in as host. So we have a substitute, and obviously, it's Scotland week, and there's unrest at Aberdeen because we have none other than the perfect man for the job for talking about both subjects. It is the Scottish Football Forum's podcast and author of now multiple Scottish football books. Books. It is John Blaesdale. Welcome back, pal. It is great to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me back. I must have made some impression the last couple of shows I've been on. Yeah, not quite multiple books yet because the other one's still not out, but it's not far away. 2 months and it'll be out, but all good. And Finn, I'm with you. No, it's TikTok for me either.
Oh, I'm with the granddads here. Come on. Surely I'm not the youngest of the group. What is your other book then, John? Come on, tell us.
Yeah, so it's we're going to Wembley. So it's a story of Scotland's qualification and performances at Euro '96. It's due on the 30th of May. It's co-written by myself and Neil Doherty, and it's got a foreword by Jock Brown, who of course is Craig's brother and commentator. So it's going to be good for that, and some great fan stories. Players' tales from like Sedan Jackson, Stuart McCall, Nicky Walker, and Billy McKinley, of course, thanks to yourself. So in the Colin so and luckily I was able to speak to Craig just a few months before. So me and Neil were lucky enough to speak to Craig before he died. So it's and some great tales for the fans as well. So it's a great book to look forward to. It's out 2 weeks before the Euros.
Oh, perfect holiday reading then for everybody in their travel on.
Absolutely.
Got a couple of bottles of Bucky and John's new book. That's all you need for a month in Germany.
That's a good selling point. You need a bottle of Bucky to read my book. Thanks, Finn.
I'm just saying that they'd be going anyway, mate. They'd be going anyway. I'm just wondering, this is only just something that's popped into my mind because World Cup 94 USA is my first like conscious memory of a big tournament, but obviously Euro 96, I was like 10 years old, I think it was. During that tournament, and so many memories came rushing back just when you're mentioning Euro 96. Is there any mention in the book, John, I don't know if any of the listeners or watchers remember this. I think it was in packets of Kellogg cereals round about Euro 96. You could get like these little, the little 3D things.
Yes.
That were like images, and it had like, I think Rennie Higuita doing the scorpion kick, but it also had like Ali McCoy's kicking a shot or something like that. And is there any mention of that in the book at all? All the mental merch that went around about Euro 96?
Unfortunately, we never covered that. We've probably missed a trick there. But yeah, I certainly remember the Kellogg's 3D video things. They were absolutely tremendous. And Laura's face like, what the hell? This was obviously a couple of years before your first tournament, Laura.
Yeah, it was.
I'll send you the link in WhatsApp.
I do remember Pogs. Does anyone remember that? They used to get in Walker's crisps.
Yeah.
That must have been around Euro 2000, Euro 96 time. That was around.
Oh yeah, Pog was mid-90s for sure, definitely. They got banned at our primary school after a while because so many fights broke out around them. So it happens when you grow up in Redbridge and Inverclyde.
Wow. Well, let's look at the news that's happened this week. Big one obviously broke on Sunday. Rangers missed a chance to move back to the top of the table on Sunday because their game away to Dundee was subjected to a late call-off. It wasn't confirmed until 90 minutes before the game was meant to kick off, though. Guys, like, was this just an unfortunate circumstance, or is it really worth getting angry over? Finn, I'm going to go to you for this because did you set your alarm for this one?
No, not for this one, actually. We'll get on to the Benfica game, I'm sure, in a little bit, but it was, I'd set my alarm for that one. No, it was actually because it was called off before I even went to bed, very close to it, because it would have been an evening kickoff in Melbourne. But I think, I mean, there's both ways of looking at it. I think first and foremost, from a prep point of view and everything, it's really annoying when a game gets called off so late for the players because you'll be building up to match day and you're mentally preparing for it. For the fans, it's even worse. I mean, I've seen things on Twitter of like, I think, bless him, there was a Rangers supporting dad and his son who got the overnight bus up from Wales to get to Dens and missed it. And actually, fair play to, I think it was the Rangers SLO, put them in touch with the first team. So they got to meet the players and stuff. So it wasn't a wasted journey in that regard. But it's really hard. There are fans traveling from all over the country, all over the UK to come in and see it. And for it to get called off so close to kickoff is really poor. It's not a one-off at Dens Park. I think, is this not the fourth time a game's been called off at their ground in kind of recent history? So there's something going on. Really, a top flight pitch in any country, but in our country, should be able to cope with heavy overnight rain. Really, there should be drainage and stuff in place that it should be able to cope with that. Obviously, the East Coast, I think, especially Scotland, because you do get the Arctic fronts and the really cold weather and frozen pitches happen a lot. And you'll know all about that up in Aberdeen, John. But it's not a particularly good look. And again, because the game was televised, so I don't know who fits the bill for that as well, because Sky have sent up all their cameras the day before to do that. Is that the SPFL doing that? It's not a brilliant look, is it?
The fact that this game was televised, it feels like Sky would be putting a lot of pressure on the game actually going ahead. They will have rigged up all their TV lines Friday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning. There's a lot of pressure there to get that game on purely because the TV cameras are there as well. So it's not just like your average 3 o'clock kickoff game. But I mean, even just the timing of this as well, John. The first inspection took place the back of 9 o'clock, and then the second one took place an hour later. And I think the referee didn't actually turn up until the second inspection took place, I think it was. Was there a failure there from the referees to really kind of be across this one?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, referees are also part-time, so unless they're going to start making referees full-time and putting them up in hotels the night before, this is what you're going to get. So Don Robertson's also only travelling up to Dundee. They've sent a local ref in for the morning, and then Don Robertson showed up just before 10:30 and looked at it and thought, no, this isn't happening. By the way, 90 minutes isn't too bad because Aberdeen fans got 52 minutes. They were actually in the ground, and it was 8 minutes past 2, and their game was called off. So this is not a one-off for Dundee. I think their game against Johnson around about that Christmas period. So I know they're looking at a new stadium as well, and this is probably one of the reasons behind it. But where's the lessons being learned? I mean, apparently it was raining in Dundee last night. Surely they should be putting a pitch cover on to try and stop rain getting on that pitch. And see, looking at the pitch, there's amateur pitches in better condition than that. I mean, there was a massive hole in the pitch that's been covered in sand. It is not a good look for the top flight at all. I mean, as I say, there's amateur pitches across Scotland that are in better condition. We live in Scotland, and you're going to have a 90% per chance of rain most times of the year. So you got to prepare for that. And if you can't afford undersoil heating, which I believe is no longer a requirement for the top flight, at least put a cover in to try and stop the water getting on in the first place. It's amateur stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we look to there's likes of like in the Netherlands, they incentivize clubs. We talked about this actually last week, Finn, when we were talking about the vote coming in for the plastic pitches and how in the Netherlands they've been pushing clubs to encouraging them to have a better pitch with a financial reward. And this kind of alludes to the same idea. It comes from a pot, a central pot of money, which essentially comes from the teams that are playing in Europe. And it kind of makes me think the likes of Celtic, Rangers, and any of the other clubs like Aberdeen, Hearts, whoever plays in Europe, should part of their prize money for playing in Europe go into a central pot, a certain percentage, go into a pot, and that pot is spread out amongst the clubs to encourage them and help them fund better pitches. And I know we're kind of having a similar conversation to last week because so many want the plastic pitches to get removed. But in return, we also need to put the finance into it and the financial backing into it to get good, authentic grass pitches. Can we afford it in this country?
I think we should find a way to try and afford it. I mean, there's a couple of things just that you, off the back of what you raised there with what the Eredivisie do, that takes a consensus by the clubs that, yes, we're competing against each other, but they need to have a broader perspective of we need to progress the national game and it can only be done together. And from that point of view, I would kind of callously say good luck trying to get the Old Firm in particular, but any club to siphon off part of their European winnings and money that's been earmarked for different things around the club to benefit the rest of Scottish football, because I don't think those clubs are really interested in that, quite frankly. I wish they were, because I think if you take that more kind of, for want of a better phrase, socialist approach to it, that's how you grow the game. That's how you look after yourselves and make sure that you're putting the best product out in the pitch. And that's actually the second point of something off the back of what we were talking about last week about the plastic pitches is how often have we talked about the Scottish game needs to market and promote itself better? I think that's absolutely inarguable. And one of the ways you can do that is make the product on the park look as good and sound as good and be as good as possible. How do you do that? Don't have plastic pitches, I would say, for your top flight, and have a certain standard and level of things that your pitch has to adhere to in order for you to have an elite playing surface that allows for the best football to take place. Because even if the game had gone ahead, I think that's the thing. And you're playing on a potato field. Like it's going to bounce as awkwardly as it does on a plastic pitch, probably worse. Like it's not going to run properly. The biggest reason why the ref would have called the game off is the player welfare. Like there's increased likelihood of injury, slipping, pulling muscles or doing something. So yeah, it feeds into a much bigger question. And it's not just Dundee. I think this is a problem for a lot of clubs in our top flight. The playing surfaces are an issue, especially when you get to this stage of the season. They've come through a rubbish winter, as is often the case. They're being played on every other week, and it's hard to maintain the level of standard of pitch that we need to play on. But as with a lot of these things, and we've said so many times, it feeds into a much bigger picture and much bigger thing that needs tackled broadly across the game.
Yeah, not ideal for a Sunday afternoon. It leaves Celtic on 71 points and Rangers a game behind now on 70. Just sticking with the Rangers though, I want to kind of touch on the European result last week. I was obviously working at the game at Ibrox. Finn, you set your alarm stupidly early for this one over in Melbourne. It was just a bit disappointing, wasn't it? So the score was going in at 2 each. Rangers went down 1-0 to Benfica in the second half and just couldn't turn it around, ultimately dropping out of the Europa League at the last 16 stage. It felt to me like it was just an opportunity missed. How did you feel, Finn?
I think there's a certain element to that. I think my biggest overriding feeling watching the game was just Rangers looked dead on their feet. It looked like they were running on fumes. They had nothing left in the tank. And even though I actually thought the likes of John Souttar, Connor Goldson, John Lundstrom had decent games, but they look so leggy. And even in the midst of that, how many times did Lundstrom, go to hit a pass and under hits it and then Benfica break or whatever? I mean, it's not an embarrassment. To all intents and purposes, Benfica are a Champions League team. We'd said that the week before. I think their squad cost like 100 million euros more than the Rangers team did to assemble. It's no disgrace going out to a club like that. I think off the back of the first leg result, and it was such a good result to come away from Portugal, it does feel like an opportunity missed. But maybe in the broader context of the season for Rangers, they're operating at the bare bones now. I think you had Scott Wright starting right of the front three. To all intents and purposes, he's the fourth choice pick for that position. And he was coming in from the cold, hasn't played in a number of months. So I think Rangers did as well as they could. The deficiencies in the squad that we talked about right at the start of the season are still there. Like, Clement's done an amazing job, but Cyril Dessers is not the type of striker you need at that level. The strength and depth of the squad with all the injuries they've got is not quite there. I also wonder, because I'd be interested to ask you about what you felt about the atmosphere, because obviously Rangers and European nights in recent seasons has garnered this reputation of being incredible. And I wonder, is part of that maybe the kickoff time? Because obviously it was the early kickoff, so it's like 5:45. Does it make it different from if it's the 8 p.m. kickoff? It's already dark, the floodlights are on, everybody's post work, had a few drinks, all of that stuff. It just was there a tangible difference in atmosphere that you felt, or was it a bit of a disappointment from what you were expecting?
There is an element of that. That's actually quite interesting because I remember when Celtic went on a run in the UEFA Cup, God, 20 years ago now. But when they got to the latter stages, I remember going to those games, and because it was March, April time, saying this is such a different feel to this because we're so used to it being nighttime games under the lights, the European atmosphere, but we're coming here in daylight now and it feels strangely like a league game all of a sudden. So there's definitely that element to it. On the flip side of that, it was torrential rain all day. So it was your proper grey, dreich, Glasgow, miserable. It felt later than it was because of that. I've also, this was actually my first time at Ibrox on a European night, and I was so excited to experience that atmosphere that we have seen that, on the likes of BT Sport when they had it, then it changed to TNT Sports, that everyone celebrated it. They had the back cam going along the main stand. It was the big nights at Ibrox, and I was so buzzing for this night that I was slightly disappointed. And I don't think it wasn't a slight on the atmosphere in that sense, but it was because the team weren't creating anything. There weren't really any chances for the fans to really get excited by. So I didn't really get to experience that. I have experienced great atmospheres at Ibrox, and especially at Old Firm games. I know what it can be like in that stadium, and I was just hoping to experience that again, but this time being pitch side in my kind of role behind the goals when I'm filming the game. So I'm a little bit disappointed I never got to experience a magical night in that sense. The time of the game, that's really interesting though. It could have something to do with it. I just feel that the team just didn't turn up. And it was just very disappointing that, especially at the end when Benfica scored, it just felt like the heads went at that point. And going into like stoppage time, the same drive wasn't there to push up the pitch. It didn't feel like the same kind of nerves in your stomach of something's going to happen here, big moments coming. It just felt like, yeah, they've just kind of
A
accepted
bit
it.
flat.
Yeah, exactly that.
I think it is just that I honestly just don't think Rangers have enough in the legs. Which, coming off, just going back to the Dundee thing, there could be a positive in this for Rangers, which is that there's almost a sense that they were like, let's just get to the international break and have that 2-week period to get players back to fitness, because there's some long-term injuries like Danilo and Sima and Cortez, but there are other players that are just coming back, but they've not had the time to get up to match fitness yet. Todd Cantwell and Nico Raskin as well, I think, still getting back to fitness. So to have actually the postponement might not be that bad a thing, because they will have players back when the rescheduled game against Dundee takes place that they might not have had yesterday. Dujon Sterling's another one that's been missing. So there's maybe an argument that it could be a bit of a blessing in disguise.
That's what I was going to actually say, John. Do you feel like this is? I don't want to dwell on Rangers all night here, but do you feel like this is now a chance for them to fully focus on the league now they're out of Europe?
Yeah, most Rangers fans I've spoken to are all saying that they just want to win the league this season. Europe, they were fine. Obviously they wanted to progress, but it wasn't the end of the world if they did go out, and obviously that happened. So I think they just really want the league badly this season because it's been a couple of years, etc. So yeah, I understand their reactions online, but the flip side is Rangers now going into this game against Celtic behind them, and if they were to lose this game, then all of a sudden they're 4 points behind with this game in hand, and they're playing catch up. So I take Finn's point about obviously players coming back and they need players back, but the sounds things if Scott Wright's starting, no disrespect to him, but that was someone that was on the plane to Turkey on his way out back in August, and now all of a sudden he's starting a European game. That just sums up the issues they've got just now. But at the same point, I think they would have loved to have had the opportunity to go back to the top of the table and have that little bit of a psychological boost getting into that crucial game after the international break.
Yeah, that Old Firm game coming the week after the international break. I think also just from my perspective, working in England, I just really wanted Rangers to get through to shock a few people. The attitudes were very much like, oh, well, Liverpool will get to the final, or, that we've got West Ham still in the competition. And it was like, hello, hold on. Rangers are still in the competition. And it was just that way I wanted them to just prove everyone wrong. It's a little bit frustrating there from my perspective, going into an English office the day after, and they just sort of went, "Oh well, Rangers are right." It's like, no, shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't
I
be a
mean,
given.
maybe we'll get another fairy tale story like West Ham, where the most moneyed team in the competition goes on to win the tournament. Maybe Liverpool will go on to win it. So it's
Oh,
just it's disappointing, but I don't think Rangers would have gone much further. To be honest, anyway, I don't think Benfica will go much further either.
no,
They
I don't
weren't
think so.
hugely impressive given the monetary advantage they had, and it's all back to league business now. But
Yeah.
John, your team at the other end of the table, there's what's going on? Like, we need to find out what's actually still going on at Aberdeen. It's as much of a mystery, I think, to a lot of people as the Kate Middleton saga that's going on Twitter at the moment. There's still no manager. Like, what have
So
you
hold on.
made of all the
So,
Kate?
so no Kate Middleton, no Aberdeen manager. I mean, which one's going to appear first?
I would
Well,
just love it if a revelation came out that Neil Warnock's been secretly photoshopping images that have been released on the Aberdeen Twitter account. It would be amazing.
well, if what the board are saying is true, and so I say that's for gospel, we should be having a manager by the end of this international break. So someone should be in before Scotland play Northern Ireland, basically. But I wouldn't hold my breath. It's just one disaster after another. It's just been a shocking season. And Neil Warnock, I heard you guys talking about him last week, and I think he's come up here thinking it's going to be he could just work his magic, but he's then realised that the players aren't great and that there's a lot of problems. And at his age, he didn't want to come up for another relegation battle. He can do that down south. So he's like, "No, stuff this, I'm off." And I can't blame him, to be perfectly honest. So, but I mean, we got a crucial win against Motherwell. There was a little bit of luck involved because I think the Motherwell goal that was disallowed, that's a shocking decision. Let's not beat about the bush. That's an absolute shocking decision. Because Theo Bair's trying to get himself a yard and the ball's just fallen, hit his arm and went across to Len Miller. If he doesn't handle that ball, it still goes to Lennon Miller. Now, I don't think it's a penalty against Shinnie in the 95th minute, but I can understand why Motherwell are appealing for it because that goal was disallowed, and where's the consistency? But when you're down the bottom, and when you've went 11 games without a win, losing the last four, you'll take any breaks you can get. So, and especially with Ross County winning as well, that was absolutely crucial because that's the next game, Aberdeen Ross County. And I
Huge.
wouldn't be objective of leaving, still having the job for that game because it's going to be a lot for a new manager to come in and pick his team before that game.
Yeah, definitely got away with one at the weekend there. Like Jimmy Fallon, right? Ellsberg manager. He's been linked to a job, but he's came out and said that Aberdeen haven't contacted him. This to me sounds as though, well, if Aberdeen haven't contacted you by now, surely that's a very weak link here. But John, have you heard anything else? Is this a realistic connection with the club?
I mean, I would like us to explore that kind of option, to be perfectly honest, because we've tried the no Scottish football manager and Jim Goodwin, it failed. We've tried a couple of inexperienced / know the club managers in Glass and Robson, they've not worked. So I'd like to cast the net wide and look abroad and bring someone else in, because look what's happened with Ange Postecoglou at Celtic, look what's happened with Rangers with Phil Clement. And the thing that I like about Clement and Rangers is that he's been given youth like Ross McCausland a chance, and I think a foreign manager might do that, whereas I think we've lost focus in that recently. Fallon seems to have a decent CV on him. He's been close to winning the league a couple of times, only lost in the last 8 to Malmo, who are a pretty well respected club in Sweden. have Aberdeen contacted him? Is he just playing try try to keep that quiet in case he is actually speaking, but doesn't want everyone to know? We don't know, but I have a feeling it's going to be someone like Neil Lennon, and I'm not sold on him, and neither's a lot of Aberdeen fans, to be honest with you. But we'll just need to wait and see.
Why are you not sold on him?
Why? Because I think for a year he could be okay, but let's be honest, he will fall out with people, and it's not just a couple falls out. It creates chaos. Look at the way he left Hibs. Hibs were 8th in the league, and their squad was in disarray when he left. And look at Celtic at him during the COVID season. That's the evidence I've got.
I'm just wondering if we should put a poll out, Laura. Who do you reckon we'll see first, the new Aberdeen manager or Kate Middleton?
Yep. I love how we're linking Scottish football now to the absolute dark hole that I've went down over the last few days. It's my two worlds are just colliding right now. But no, look, we alluded to, obviously, we mentioned the Motherwell result at the weekend, beating them 1-0 at Fir Park. Motherwell notoriously quite bad at beating Aberdeen at home, but great at beating them at Pittodrie. But this was a really big 3 points for Aberdeen, because that could really have sucked them into the relegation battle had they not picked up the 3 points at the weekend. John, do you feel confident now that is it a case of fighting for the top six, or just avoiding relegation, or just kind of just taking a breather and going, look, let's just get this season over and done with, and we'll just kind of sit pretty in the middle of the bottom half? What's your thinking right now?
We're 8 points behind Hibs, who are in the 6th position just now with 3 games to play. So we're not getting top 6. That's been written off. Our recent results have not been good enough. We're still in that battle. We're only 3 points clear of Ross County. Nothing's changed in that regard. The only thing that's changed is we've finally got a win, which will hopefully build a bit of confidence. And we've gone above St Johnstone and dragged potential Motherwell into it. So it all depends in this game with Ross County. I think if we beat Ross County and go 6 clear of them, then I think we can start thinking, look, let's just get to the end of the season. But right now, we need to make sure that we avoid 11th, because the prospect of Aberdeen going down scares me. We've never been down, and if we were to go down, I know people say, "Oh well, Hearts came back up and Hibs came back up, Dundee came back up." It took Hibs 3 years to come up. It took Dundee United 4 years to go back. I'm there back down, and we'd end up having to sell our biggest asset, Majewski, for half of what was being quoted just now. So we can't afford to go down.
And Marshall has saved! Yes! One big yes!
All right, it is the best time of the year. Finn, you might not agree, but me and John are definitely in that camp. It is International Week. Scotland have 2 games coming up now. Netherlands away on Friday, and then Northern Ireland at home on Tuesday. Now, they are friendlies, but when you are just a couple of months away from the Euros, can any game really be taken that lightly? This is all massive warm-up games, and it is really just kind of whetting the appetite for all the fans, really, to get in the mood for what is going to be an amazing summer. I think the main topic, and we touched on this very lightly last week when the news came out that Callum McGregor had obviously not made the squad because of his Achilles injury. But I think the main thing to kind of look at firstly is who's going to come in for him? How are we going to shape up in midfield, and how much are things going to really change, John? What do you think?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because Ryan Christie's been playing that position for Bournemouth and excelled in that position. I notice he's been listed as a midfielder rather than a forward for the first time in a while. So is that a nod to him playing there? Ken McLean, obviously, has played that position multiple times for club and country, effectively. So he's probably someone that will come in. I can see a scenario where one starts one game and one starts the other, and the fact they're both left-footed. People are saying Lewis Ferguson. I'm not sure if he'll be more of an advanced midfielder. I have a feeling Ferguson will start one of the games. I think there'll be a rotation between the 2 games. I think our strongest possible, or as close to our strongest possible, will be playing against the Netherlands, and there might be 1 or 2 changes for Northern Ireland games. But it's good that you highlight the importance of the games, Laura, because although they're friendlies, yes, we also want to halt this winless run that we're currently in. We're 5 games without a win, and you don't really want to go in a major tournament in the back of a bad run. I remember France 98. I think we went 5 games without a win at that point, and we didn't really play well in the tournament apart from the opening game. So you really want to get these victories as soon as possible to help build momentum again.
What do you do with midfield? Because like when I'm looking at the midfielders in the squad that have been called up, I think I would agree with you, John. I think potentially I would try to experiment across the two games. Probably, given the strength of the opposition, you would play closer to your starting 11 or your more preferred and experienced players against the Netherlands, and then maybe try something that's a bit different against Northern Ireland. No disrespect to Northern Ireland, but just that makes sense to do. But looking at the players in the squad, to me, it's almost a bit more like, well, who kind of has to start? Who can you not afford to take out the team because of the way they've been playing? And obviously, McGinn, McTominay, and probably Billy Gilmore have to start. So then you're kind of left with, well, where does anybody else fall into that role? And it might be something that against the Netherlands, you try something that weirdly is more attacking. I don't know, a slightly different way that we would play with Callum McGregor in the midfield. Because to me, the two players that I would most like to see being used in some way and using the games as an experiment, which I think they should be used at because there's nothing at stake, is Lewis Ferguson and Ryan Christie, maybe in slightly different roles or just testing them. So I don't know, but what would be your preference over the course of two games, Laura?
Yeah, I think the Lewis Ferguson thing is so interesting because everyone is calling for him right now. He is obviously, captain of Bologna, scoring for fun right now in the Serie A. It's almost like that argument of, well, you've got Tierney and Robertson, how you've got to try and make your best players fit into the starting lineup, regardless of the fact that you're doubling up in positions. How do you make it work? So I can kind of see that argument of we have to accommodate Ferguson in some way. He's not going to directly replace McGregor, though, because he doesn't sit so defensively week in, week out. So it doesn't make sense for him to go as a straight replacement. It then begs the question of how do you rejuggle that midfield to then go, well, okay, McGregor's missing. We want to bring in Ferguson. So that then begs the question of, well, who's going to slot in? Do you then go with just Gilmore defensively and change it from two back to just one sitting deep? I don't know if Gilmore is the player to just do that on his own. And then you go, well, okay, well, McTominay could go back there. I don't personally like McTominay in a defensive position. I like him. He plays better when he's more attacking. I feel as though he's a freer player. He enjoys that attacking role. He can embrace that more. And you see the best. And we saw it with 6 goals in the qualifiers, 7 if you count the Spain game, which I feel like we should because we got robbed out of it. I'm still not over that. But then you go, okay, the Christie, that's a great example. Do we put Christie back there? If he's playing there week in, week out for the club, that's a great chance to put him deep. Armstrong can play deeper. Not sure that I'm a big fan of putting Armstrong back there. Maybe still slightly got PTSD from the England game. Really need to go over that. It was a long time ago. And then you've got likes of Kenny McLean, Ryan Jack, who are very capable replacements. I just don't feel like they're first team picks though. So there's still a lot of question marks there. There are options, but I don't feel like there's an obvious answer.
I think the other thing as well, it really is to me around the experimenting thing, because it's something I've definitely been critical, and I know other fans have been critical about Clarke, because there's not a huge amount to be critical of, but I know certainly I've always felt that of the scant few times we play friendlies, I don't think Clarke's used friendlies properly in trying different things, different systems. And I guess that takes us on to the point about the goalkeepers. I find it quite interesting he'd selected 4. He's called up 4. I don't know what you think about this, John. Like, what do you read into the 4 keepers being called up?
Yeah, I see a lot of people are commenting on why we get 4 goalkeepers but only 3 strikers, which is
Triggered up front. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we accommodate them.
Liam Kelly, defensive mids. No, I think what he's trying to do is, just keep everyone on side just now, because we know there's going to be 3 goalkeepers going, and he doesn't want the scenario where he's like, Liam Kelly, you're dropped because Craig Gordon's back, and then Craig Gordon gets injured again, or Xander Clarke gets in and said, right, well, Liam, you're back in. You don't want to pee people off. So I don't know if that's part of his thinking. Plus, Craig Gordon has only had 3 Scottish Cup ties as well. However, right now, and Laura, I know you're a big fan of Liam Kelly, but I can't see him making this squad. I think even if Craig Gordon plays Scottish Cup ties, I think his experience will be enough to keep him in this squad. I don't think he'll be first choice. I think that'll be Gunn. I think that's Gunn's position to lose. I think Clark's playing well enough at Hearts. I don't think there's any harm in it. And in terms of up front, who would you have added to that squad? I mean, because I think Jacob Brown's injured, but he failed his audition against Norway, let's be honest. But Kevin Nisbet's injured again, and I'm not sure he's got it, to be perfectly honest. I don't think anyone's competing with the three that we've got, Adams, Dykes and Shankland, and which begs the other question, who starts the games? Shankland's got to start one of them for me.
Yeah.
He's the most on-form striker of the three. Adams is picked up, to be fair. Dykes is struggling a wee bit for goals, but you know, they're all good options, but Shankland needs to start one of them. I think he's only started one international game in his 7 appearances, and that was against San Marino, which was what, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see him get a start. I think he deserves a start in one of the games, probably Northern Ireland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we started this season, the chat was very much, well, when we qualified, the chat was, will Shankland even make the squad? And I think now everyone is in agreement. There's no way we can leave him out the squad after the season he's had. He is potentially in line for Player of the Year. And he adds a different element because Dykes and Adams don't play as your natural out-and-out goal scorer that can just knock one in from 6 yards out. And again, this is where the kind of experimentation comes into it. I'm with you, John. I think the Northern Ireland game could be one where we see him start and a little bit of experimentation there. But I mean, you're talking about who would you bring in? I think the question is, who do you leave out? We see a, what's that, a 25-man squad, 26-man squad we've got just now for this double header. It's only going to be a 23-man squad that goes to Germany. So you look at it, right? You obviously a goalie's going to drop out. We know that that's a given. 3 will go to Germany. One of the 4 will drop out. And Callum McGregor, we hope, will be fit, so will come back in. So then who misses out? Who would you... And even at that, Aaron Hickey could come back in as well. So that begs the question of 3 could drop out. So based on this squad, who do you think are the 2 or 3 that's going to drop out, leaving the goalie situation for now?
It's fair to say Anthony Nelson's only cover for Hickey just now. Hickey's apparently is due back at the start of May. So if he comes back and he has a couple of bounce games with Brentford, he should make the squad. So Ralston would drop out for him. I personally think he'll take Taylor because Tierney's a centre-back. No matter what people say, Tierney is in this Scotland squad as a centre-back first, and you couldn't take Tierney and Robertson as your only left-backs, given Tierney's injury record. Because if Robertson gets injured or suspended, and are you relying on Tierney being fit? I think you're losing a couple of the centre halves at the moment, and it's an interesting debate. I think Hendry will definitely go. I think Porteous will definitely go. I think Tierney's obviously going. It's then which 2 go with him. I think Hanley will probably make it now, and then it's just one of the rest, and that's a difficult call. But I'm glad Steve Clarke's making that decision, not any us three.
I think there's also it tends to happen a lot, especially as you get towards the end of the season and maybe teams, their club teams or whatever, involved in cup runs or relegation battles or title fights. If it's English Championship or something, there might be niggles and small injuries and things that will just force people in and out the squad. So you need to be adaptable to that too. Just going back to the striker situation, I really like having that 3 as the 3 to choose from, in particular with Dykes, Adams and Shankland, because I think they give you 3 completely different skill sets depending on the opposition. Because I would say Dykes is great because he's great at holding up the ball and bringing midfielders into the game. So he's the power. Adams is the runner. So he's able to stretch defences, play on the counter-attack if that's how we want to do it. And Shankland, to me, is the finisher in those 3. He's the one that's, if you know you're going to probably get more chances in front of goals, he will put more than most of them away. So to have those options there, and again, like that can work in rotation of, say, you start Dykes to give them a physical battle, maybe if it's a bigger team like Germany or something in the opening game, for an hour or so. Then when the legs start to get a bit more stretched, that might be for Adams then. Or if you feel like the legs are still in Germany, but you just need somebody with that cutting edge to get through, Shank would be the one that would come on. Or do you want to go from the off straight into the opposition, try and establish a lead or do something? Maybe you start Shankland. So I think it's kind of more depending on the opposition, but I'm just hopeful, like you're saying, John, that Shanklin starts at least one of them and he just gets a bit more of that freedom to know that he's part of this squad, not just like a kind of orphan at the bakery window trying to look in. I think that's changed from the start of the season, as you were alluding to, Laura.
We had another big weekend of results as we kind of near closer and closer to the business end of the season. I think the only place to start is the Kilmarnock St Mirren game. What a game this was. Charles Dunn, Mikael Mandarin putting Saints 2 up in the first half. You're thinking, massive result for them in the fight for Europe. And then if anyone switched off at half time, they were in for a shock, because what a second half goal fest from Kilmarnock. Kyle Vassell with the double, Danny Armstrong, Marley Watkins and David Watson. And if you're counting that was 5-2 to St Mirren by the end of the game. Finn, I'm going to come to you first. Was this the collapse of the season or the comeback of the season?
I mean, it's probably a little bit of both in there, but the thing is, because I think all the Killie goals come in pretty much the final half hour of the game. It's not just the second half.
18 minutes.
So
18
yeah.
minutes. What is what? Wow.
And that's astonishing. But in some ways, it's kind of not a surprise as well, just because we I think we've talked in recent weeks as well about how much fight Killie have got. They've always been a team that fights well, but under McInnes, they've got this tenacity that they don't drop out of games. The amount of late goals they've scored in games this season has actually been quite impressive. And also, we definitely made a point after the January transfer window, just looking at the attacking options that Killie have got. It's astonishing. And you're looking at that, that's Kyle Vassell, Danny Armstrong, Marley Watkins. Like, these players have all been playing well. And so the options they've got are brilliant. Maybe it's just one of those games where everything you touch turns to gold, because that's 5 goals in 18 second half minutes. It's incredible. It's a phenomenal comeback. I mean, that really is, to have the temerity and the mental strength at 2-0 down with half an hour to go, not to consider yourselves out the game and to get yourselves back into it, but then just to kind of steamroll right through. It's incredible. But just what a game. I mean, these are the games. It's such an amazing advert for our game, that you can have games that so wildly vacillate between St Mirren absolutely dominating that first half and then Killie going hellfire leather towards the end of the game. It's just, it's incredible.
Yeah, I don't want to take away too much from David Watson, but the defending for when he got his goal at the end was catastrophic. But as I say, don't take away too much from David Watson, because he has been outstanding recently. John, is this a contender for Young Player of the Year that we're seeing here?
Yeah, with it, I'm actually trying to think off the top of my head who else was down compete with them. Probably Lennon Miller being the main one. But yeah, he looks a really good player. He's actually been asked to play different positions recently. He was played slightly out of position against Aberdeen in the Cup recently. They played him in left wing because Matty Kennedy was injured and didn't have a great game, was taken off early. But no, every time I've seen him, he looks very impressive. He looks very confident. And yeah, I think the boy's got a bright future, and I just hope he progresses well. And what I will say, the goal of this game, that was a good goal, but the goal of this game from Marley Watkins, what a header that is, to generate the direction power from that cross. I mean, that was just sensational. I love a good headed goal now and then, and that's the headed goal of the season without a question.
I don't I know that they won't have went home too happy, but I need to kind of mention the St Mirren support for this game. I think I've complained a lot over the kind of months, if not years, that the travelling support don't get the lower tier at Rugby Park, and it looks terrible on camera that they're tucked away at the back of the stand. But St Mirren took so many fans, 2,500 down to Kilmarnock, that they got both tiers open. They took up pretty much the whole stand behind the goal, and fair play to them, it looked class. Do want to kind of note it was 11 years ago this weekend that they won the League Cup. So I think they'll have happier memories looking back on that one than they did from this weekend, but still fair play to them, because their attendances this season, home and away, have been nothing short of incredible. We touched on, obviously, the Motherwell 0 Aberdeen 1 result earlier in the show, but let's move on to Celtic. 3-1 win over St Johnstone. Goals from Kyogo, Kuhn and Forrest, and also a consolation from Connor Smith. John, 3 goals going on maybe 6 for Celtic. It was quite a comfortable one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was going on 7 or 8. I would say I thought Celtic looked more like their old selves. They were. Um, there was a bit more tempo of their game. I think Celtic at times this season have been pretty slow, and teams have been who are able to sit in have been like just come at us. But I think St Johnstone struggled to cope, and if it wasn't for Mitov, it could have been a lot worse for St Johnstone. They were never going to get the result they did earlier in the season. Kyogo could have had a hat trick if he'd stayed on side for one of them and the other player stayed on side for the other one. But yeah, it was convincing, and I thought the boy Kuhn looked really good for Celtic yesterday. I mean, he's come under criticism, but I thought he looked really good yesterday. He was also the right place, right time for his goal, and you keep forgetting James Forrest is still there. Yeah, he popped up with
Popping up.
a goal as well. Yeah, but yeah, convincing for Celtic. And for St Johnstone, it's just a matter of getting to other games that are going to define where they stay in the table, not the Celtic results.
Yeah, talking of formalities, Hibs 3, Livy 0. Now, 2 goals in 7 minutes for Hibs, and Le Fondre adding a third, sealing it after 22 minutes. I mean, this one was kind of down. It was rounded up nice and early. I don't want to dwell too much on it, so I'm going to move on to Ross County Hearts Finn. This one was a wee bit of a surprise. But I say a surprise. Nothing surprises me right now with Ross County. They're obviously down there fighting the relegation battle, but it feels like they are just never going to get put down, are they? They're just like, no, fuck you all. We're around and we're sticking around.
I wonder if they've kind of taken over Hamilton's mantle. I remember back when we used to do the Totally Scottish show as well. It always felt like the two things that would survive a nuclear holocaust would be cockroaches and Hamilton in the top flight. Like it's just they were just like they will never go. They will finish 9th every season for the rest of history. And eventually did go down. But I wonder if Ross County's got that vibe. And then like you think last season, oh my goodness, with Partick Thistle leading them with moments to go, and you're like, no, they're down. No, they're not. It's like, the wrestling thing when you think the guy's down after the count of 2 and he gets back to his feet and gets back up. Yeah, I mean a double by Simon Murray. I think Ross County were good for it. Is it a blip from Hearts? It's a really difficult place to go as well. And Ross County, you're right, have been battling hard. We saw the midweek game against Hibs when Jan Danda scored right at the death. And all of these points are so crucial there. I know just there's not much to touch on from the Hibs Livy game, but obviously just in the context of the relegation battle, that game was like so chips and Haim, wasn't it? It was a total chips and Haim performance. It's like game's done after 25 minutes. Just call full time now. Let everybody go home. That was it easy. Looking at Livy's next couple of fixtures before the break, it's home to Celtic, home to Aberdeen, and away to Hearts. And it's like, do you see them picking up any points in those games? Probably not. So I wonder if it's just a bit of a formality. And Ross County coming into some semblance of form, maybe just at the right time of the season.
I wasn't surprised that Ross County won that game. I know Hearts are on a good run, but they'd only dropped 5 points the last 3 months. Have been an incredible run. But I just felt that Ross County at home, they'll give anyone a game. It's a tight little ground. They've picked up the odd points, as you guys have been saying. And also, I wonder if Hearts' minds are now turning to the Scottish Cup semi-final, because they're not going to fall below third and they're not going to go above third. I just thought this was a perfect opportunity for County to take something, and lo and behold, I was right. And as I said earlier, thank goodness Aberdeen won, because all of a sudden it could have been level points or even 1 point ahead, but thankfully still 3.
Yeah, Hearts sitting pretty in third, 11 points ahead of Kelly, who are in fourth. Ross County, though, they've opened up this gap. They're sitting in 11th, but they're 10 ahead of Livingston. It just feels like with every passing week, it's becoming worse and worse for Livy and Davy Martindale. Looking to the Championship, though, I'll turn to you, John. What's been happening? Because it feels like no one wants to win this league.
I mean, I watched some of the Dundee United game on Friday night, and they were terrible. Defensively, they were all over the place. I mean, it's probably epitomised with the third Dunfermline goal. They're just no one's staying in their position. It was almost like when you're watching kids playing football for the first time, they're all chasing after the ball and not getting a kick at it. And Dunfermline walked through. I mean, where's this been from Dunfermline for most of the season? Because they're a team that possibly should be in the playoff position. But once again, Wraith Rovers handed an opportunity and they failed to take it. And that is the thing that's keeping Dundee United top just now, is that Wraith Rovers just don't seem to have the ball. It is so frustrating from their point of view. In terms of other championship, Arbroath have definitely gone down. I think that's fair to say. They've got a minus 34 goal difference. I think the next team is minus 11. But it's not looking good for Big Dunk right now for Inverness. I think losing at home to Ayr, yeah, they've lost a good bit of momentum from when he first came in, and yeah, I think they're destined for the playoffs right now.
Yeah, Dundee United obviously losing 3-1 to Dunfermline on Friday night, and Wraith Rovers failing to capitalise, drawing 0-0 with Queen's Park the following day. It is all to play for in the championship, and we are, of course, loving every second of the fact that they're both bottling it in the run in here. League One, like Andrew's obviously laying low this week. Is it because Queen of the South suffered yet another devastating defeat, this time at the hands of Falkirk? They went down 4-1 at home. It means they're just 3 points obviously ahead of local rivals Anna now. So things could get pretty dicey in the borders as they enter the league run-in. Hopefully Andrew's back for that one so we can wind him up. Finn, what's happening in League Two?
There's some pretty big results at the foot of League Two. Stenny's still home and dry. They've got the deck chairs out. Quite frankly, I don't think they did all the hard work up until about Christmas time. Miles in front, just cigars every Saturday night. They draw some, they lose some, they get pumped. Doesn't matter. But at the other end of the table, we've touched on it a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, but Clyde with another crucial away win, this time against fellow strugglers Bonnyrigg Rose. Just looking at their form, Clyde are actually have the best form of any team in League Two at the moment. So of their last 5 matches, they've won 4 and drawn 1. And it means that the Bully Wee are actually only just 3 points from safety now, and that gap was just over a month ago. That gap was 11 points. So they are coming into form right at the perfect time. They've still got some tricky games coming up, but it's going to make things really interesting because for a long time it looked like Clyde were on their way down out the league. But there's a couple of teams wrapped up in that relegation dogfight now. So yeah, it's really interesting at the bottom of League Two.
It's all to play for. Obviously, no league games coming up this week because it's Scotland week. Hey! And we are on international duty. But that's all for this week. As ever, thank you so much, guys. Like, I am by far no natural host, so Andrew, please come back if you're listening to the end of this. We need you badly. But guys, thank you for pulling me through. Finn, as ever, and John, thanks for slotting in this week. Look, there's no points up for grabs, but I hope we come away with a metaphorical 6 points at the end of this international break. So, as Andrew would say, go and listen to something else now, maybe another Scotland podcast to get you in the mood for the double header. And we'll catch you next week. Bye.